You're listening to European Startup Universe Talks, a podcast where we meet with startup founders, angel investors, and major stakeholders of the European startup ecosystem. They let us in on the do's and don'ts of running a startup, their career story, and the process of succeeding as well as failing. In other words, everything of interest to startup nerds. European Startup Universe is a massive network of opportunities for EU tech startup founders, connecting them with the best minds of the EU tech community, with unicorn founders, known investors, and experts. We have brought together European countries to join forces and launch startup programs suitable for their nation's tech founders. ESU aims to give access to opportunity for funding and expansion across EU countries. Welcome to European Startup Universe Talks. I'm Mauritza, and today I'm here with Mr. Nikos Drandakis, a serial entrepreneur who founded Beat back in 2011 and more recently founded Flyway. Big welcome to you.
Thank you, Mauritza. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, we're very, very happy to have you. I would like to begin with, can you tell me a bit more about how your career started?
Yes, it started quite a few decades ago. It's obvious. I'm a serial founder. I started by taking over my family business, which was on a totally different sector. It wasn't a technology business. It was on a shoe and accessories business a few decades ago. And then I transitioned to the internet when it first came into our lives in the decade of 90s. And that's where I started, becoming self-taught programmer, and I built my first startup, which was a miserable failure, but still I learned so much. And then eventually I came to build another two companies with relative good success. The last one being TaxiBit. So TaxiBit was my last company. I founded it 10 years ago in Athens, Greece. It was the ride-hailing company. It went pretty well. We expanded Latin America. We had operations in 6 countries in total. We're doing hundreds of millions of dollars every year in revenue. We had 850 employees, and the company was eventually acquired by Daimler. And then I left the company 2 years later, and here I am with my new venture.
Yeah, can you tell me a bit more about Flyway?
Flyway is solving a fundamental problem that existed forever in the real estate sector. And it was one of the most massive underutilizations of the world, which has to do with second homes. So currently in the world, there are approximately 100 million second homes, which are properties and assets totally underutilized. Most of the people own them to use them only 10% of the time, 20% of the time. And what Flyway does is it buys amazing second homes, puts a company as an owner of these homes, split these homes in 12 shares, and then starts selling these shares to individuals. So it combines the best of worlds between owning a property and renting a property. So what you get with owning a property is you own an asset, right? So it's an investment for you. It's a personal investment. But on the other hand, you don't fully own the asset. You own it to the extent you use it. So if you want to use a second home for 30 days of a year, then you buy one of the 12 shares that we sell in a second home, and you use it for these 30 days. And the best part of it is that not only you use it for 30 days, but we take care of everything that has to do with the home. We maintain the home, we clean up the home, we repair the home, and we take care of taxes and legal issues and everything. And then we pass the cost of maintaining the home to you by the relevant share you own. So it solves a decades-old problem and utilizes all these assets that were sitting idle for most of the year around the world. And at the same time, it gives you full ownership. It's not timeshare. You don't own time in a property. You own a real asset, but partially. So it was what we call traditionally co-ownership, But this time it works because we manage the relationship between the different owners of a property. We give them a tool to schedule their access to the home, booking times when each should go. But what we do is we specialize in these second homes, let's say industry, in city second homes, what we call the pied-à-terres. So people who need a second home in major metropolis like London, like Paris, or here in Athens, then you can buy a second home to visit frequently for business, for pleasure, for whatever reason. So this is our focus right now in the domain of second homes.
What has been the process of this startup so far? How has it been?
So it's very intense. As usual, it happens with all startups. We started this project about five months ago. It's a project heavy in legal, heavy in finance. So it's not a traditional startup that you develop a mobile app, which takes a couple of months before you publish an MVP, and then you see how it goes and you improve it. This is very heavy in offline operations. You have to identify the right homes. You have to negotiate buying the homes, and you have to come up with the right agreements between the owners. So a lot of legal work. So that's what we did so far in the last 4 to 5 months. And now we have finished with the heavy legal and finance work. We have a great website also. We have the mobile app for the owners. Our owners will use a mobile app to schedule their stays in the homes. And now we're ready to buy our first homes in London, because London is our first market that we're launching in the next month, actually this month. So we're very happy to be launching officially this month in a couple of weeks, and happy to have you also as a guest in one of our amazing homes.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Even though you have a lot of experience, when you are soon to be launching, do you still get a bit nervous?
Yes. Terribly nervous all the time. Every new baby that you give birth to is unique. It's like you're doing it for the first time. So yes, a lot of anxiety, a lot of unknown ahead of you. You don't know how to do stuff. And also, you get back to the basics, reminding yourself how it is to do things that don't scale. You don't have, a personal assistant. You don't have so many people when you were CEO of a bigger company to help you. So you dig into every tiny bit of detail with the product, with the code, with the sales, everything. So it's both nervous, but also it's great to getting back to the roots, to the fundamentals before you see your baby growing, and then you get a more executive, let's say, role in the company. But it's very exciting.
Okay, so have you missed a bit the early stages of the startup process?
I have absolutely missed it. That's why I'm building something new, to be honest, because I'm not building a new company because I need the money. But mostly I'm doing it because I miss, building new things and working on the fundamentals to solve a problem that people have and see people being happy with what I built. That's what I want to see myself doing. So yeah, I was eagerly looking forward to start building something new.
So that is what keeps you going, that keeps you, coming up with these ideas to really solve a problem for people, to make their lives better. Is that what drives you?
Yes, that's what drives me. And I suspect that this has to do also with, let's say, family tradition, the way I was born and raised, because my parents were relatively poor. They had a small, minor shoe production, factory just by themselves and a couple other, employees. And they were working day and night, almost 7 days a week. And I was born and raised into this family. And I got used to the idea that you have to work really hard to make a living for yourself, but also you have to work really hard to build something for other people. So that's how I feel I got my first, the way I was raised and developed my character, that I always want to build something that's useful for other people. And that's why I never imagined myself being an employee or being a consultant. God forbid, I don't know, I always want to build something for other people. Yeah, that's what drives me.
Okay, oh, that's very interesting, and it's often you can trace back how your childhood was to the things that really excites you or you feel passionate about, and later on in life.
Yes.
So you think that that experience growing up was the reason that you, because this is a career field that is very uncertain, so it built maybe a bravery?
Yes, the truth is that entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And sometimes, I hear people trying to encourage other people, especially younger people, to become entrepreneurs. I think this is a very special way to live your life. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of special characteristics in your personality to be able to, let's say, afford this way of living. Work-life balance that usually people say is not something that you can expect when building a company for yourself. So I always believe that if you're an entrepreneur, you know it already. You don't wait for somebody else to tell you that you should become an entrepreneur, you should become a founder. You know it, and you're born with that. And sometimes, usually early in your career, very early in your career, you start showing your entrepreneurial spirit. And then you live your life this way. You spend your days and nights by thinking how to build, what to build, by solving problems, by thinking at the same time, both strategically and tactically, how to solve the next day's problem, but also how to move forward to your big vision that drives you 5-10 years later. These are thoughts that you wake up and sleep every day. And I don't think it's something you can learn. You can get used to it, but it's mostly native, I think.
Oh, it's really something that comes from within.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I've heard that people have told you that you are too stubborn even for an entrepreneur. And I was thinking a bit of the characteristics that you just mentioned. What do you think people mean when they tell you that?
I'm stubborn as an entrepreneur. I think it can be expected from someone who lives their life this way. And I'm crazy demanding also. I'm impulsive in a big way also. I can't wait to see things happen. I have certain characteristics which I think I share with all the entrepreneurs out there, all the founders, which, first of all, you have a focus on execution. You want to do things and do things right. You get driven by ideas and vision, but mostly what you care about is the day-to-day things, the execution, moving the needle every single day. And then you have a bias for action. The way you think is that you want to do something today instead of planning it for 1 week ahead. And even if you make a mistake, you can correct it. But bias for action is a very, very native characteristic of a successful entrepreneur, I think. And then me personally, I'm also, let's say, a black and white thinker. I usually can't see things in a gray scale, see both good and bad things in a situation, let's say in a person. And there's something that Steve Jobs was saying, that he used to say that it's either insanely great or it's total shit. And that's how usually I live my life, because I either reject something abruptly or I embrace it and I love it and I go with it full speed ahead. Sometimes it gets you in problems, and you develop a sense of understanding which are the crucial decisions, the one-way doors that Jeff Bezos says that you should think twice before you make an impulsive decision, because there's no way back. Although with all the other decisions, it's much better if you are fast in making decisions. If you made a mistake, you can correct it, you can get back, improve it, fix it. But speed is essential nowadays. And one more characteristic I have as a founder, and I think all successful founders have, is this sense of urgency, that you feel competition behind your neck, and you always need to be ahead of everybody. And that drives your decision-making process to be really, really fast. despite any mistakes you may make. So this is the way you live your day by day. And another thing, of course, is a focus on the right people. That's crucial because you're not going to do everything yourself. So keeping an eye always on the right people. You should have let's say, a recruiting posture in your life. Every day you should be out looking for the right talent, because without the right talent, you're never going to achieve anything, regardless of how hard you work or how hard you execute. So looking out for the right people is a very important characteristic that someone should have in order to succeed, to build amazing teams, because teams win usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, teams might be more vital than you might think in the beginning. What would you say has been the biggest challenge of your career?
How much time do we have? I think that the biggest challenge was a time when my previous company, Taxibit, expanded Latin America, and we started with Brazil, which was the biggest and most promising market back then. And while we were the first taxi hailing app in Brazil, so a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential to build something really big, I made a few mistakes. I neglected the need to be very close to the market and to the local team. The company was also underfunded, so I couldn't afford, to both travel a lot to Brazil, but also build a relatively big team and strong team there. And that led the company to eventually 1.5 years later leave the market. And we left behind us a huge opportunity. That was a very big challenge, a very big disappointment for me, for my team, for my investors back then. Well, later on, we fixed this problem. We expanded to Peru. We won the market. Then we kept expanding in other markets. But that moment was really, it was painful and really challenging for us, especially with the way we lost this market, mostly from my personal mistakes.
Okay, how did you handle making mistakes and not, succeeding in the way that you wanted? How did you handle it, and how did you not give up?
Yeah, as I told you, it's the way people like me live their lives. You accept that life is full of challenges. It was not the first, disappointment or failure I had in my life. I had failures before. So in a way, I was used to it. But also, I always had the feeling that, you had X decades ahead of you in your life. So any setback that you're facing right now is just a setback. You can take the lessons and improve your game. And then in the next game, you're going to be much better and you're going to achieve something. So I worked around this failure in a way that I try to sit down with myself, take the biggest lessons, and be very tough with myself. One lesson, I think, one characteristic I think all founders, successful founders, should have is confront the brutal facts, something that Jim Collins says in his famous book, Good to Great. So being very honest with yourself and with your team and with your investors, and always confronting the brutal facts, be very direct about what's happening in your business situation right now, taking all the hard lessons and making a promise, first of all, to yourself to fix these mistakes in your next, effort, in your next attempt to enter a market or whatever else you're doing. And then being very passionate about improving your game in these areas. And that's what we did essentially with my previous company. We went out to Peru to win this market, and we were way behind Uber, which was the leader in the market. We worked really hard. We had the motto that was saying inside the company, it was saying destroy Uber, and that was our vision for the next 1 year. What we said is that we currently have 5% of the market share. We're gonna beat Uber in their own game, and we'll be the leader in the market. We became the leader in the market in just 1 year. We acquired 50% of the market. And then we repeated the same, approach by having the whole company focused in one goal, very hard working in Colombia, and we became again player number one in Colombia. So this was the result. What we did in these markets was the result of our failure in Brazil. We applied all the lessons in a very, very tough way. We executed ruthlessly, and I think we succeeded. We did a pretty good job. And I assigned this success to our previous failure and the honest work we did discussing our mistakes.
Okay, so it was really a blessing in disguise what happened before in Brazil.
Yes, exactly.
So what would you say is the moment of your career? Maybe it's something that when you have worked a lot and you dreamed about it, and when it finally came true, do you have a moment like that?
Well, speaking about business strictly, obviously the company's acquisition by Daimler was a very big moment. Not only personally, not only for the company, the team, but for the whole Greek ecosystem, because the ecosystem in Greece was very mature 10 years ago, way behind, the rest of Europe and the US. And this was one of the most, maybe the first very, let's say, public and major exit for a Greek startup to a conglomerate like it was, Daimler. So it was a very big moment for all of us, mostly for proving that we can do something, we can pull it off, and grab the attention of a major player in Europe to acquire the company. And we're very happy for that.
I can imagine. You mentioned a bit about the Greek ecosystem. How do you feel about the current state of it now?
I think it's doing great. It's doing really great. So I still think that we are behind most of the countries, the European countries, but I think we're catching up, picking up the pace. I see some recent great developments. We had an exit by Viva, a major fintech, which got an investment from JP Morgan and was actually our first unicorn, which is amazing news. We also had some other notable exits from other companies. Also, other companies like Blue Ground are doing amazingly well. We're going to hear great things soon, I think, from Blue Ground, and Endeavor in Greece, I think, is playing a very crucial role in helping the ecosystem grow. I think they're doing an amazing job, actually. So I think the greater ecosystem also is really good, and the economy is going well, and government supports a lot the efforts of the ecosystem. So I think all pieces are in place right now to see our ecosystem flourish and grow really fast. So the next 2 or 3 years, I think, are going to be really amazing for Greece overall, but for startups, most importantly.
Well, that's nice to hear. Then that the faith in the future is big.
Yeah, I believe this is gonna. And to be honest, my biggest let's say concern and goal is to have Flyway contribute to this success story in a bigger way, hopefully, than Taxibit did back then, 6 years ago. So that's one more reason why I'm working on this idea, to help the ecosystem, explode.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your advice to others that are really in the beginning stages of their startup? Majority of our listeners are early stage startup founders, so I think they would really appreciate some advice from the veterans.
Despite my age, I would like to consider myself as a veteran. So I want to think that, I'm always starting something new as if it was the first time. But if I may have some advice to other people, although everybody, follows their heart and their own way of doing things, and everybody's unique in doing things. I think a new founder has to identify, first of all, answer to a number of questions. One question is what you can be the best in the world at. That's a very fundamental question you have to answer yourself, and then build on that, invest on that. And then the second is, what are you deeply passionate about? And then combine it together, your personal passion and the things you can do best. Don't try to copy, replicate models or ways of doing things that you heard that other CEOs or founders are doing, unless you found them to be, to fit very well to your own personality. So, you feel like yourself. Usually try to avoid mistakes that most of the founders, especially first-time founders, are doing. So one of the mistakes that first-time founders are doing is complacency after the first signs of success. You start a new idea, it proves to be a really good idea, you have product market fit, you start growing, get your first investors, and then you start getting complacent. You're not ruthless in your execution. You start celebrating a lot your successes. You try a lot to improve the culture in the sense of making your employees feel well, give a lot of perks, give a lot of salary raises. And many people make this mistake very early in their startup phase. And this is a mistake you should avoid totally doing. And then other things that I mentioned earlier, like sense of urgency, have a constant sense of urgency throughout your whole career, not only the beginning, not in the middle of your career, throughout your whole career, have this sense of urgency and focus on execution. And they should keep in mind that they should grow with their role. So if you're a CEO in the company or an executive, an early founder or employee, the company you're serving in when it's 5 employees only or 10 employees only is a totally different company when it's 200 employees or 2,000 employees. And therefore, your role is totally different. And in many aspects, you should change parts of your personality, not your whole personality, but parts of your personality or the way you do your business. So how do you grow in your role? How do you identify the moment when you need to make the switch from the 10-person CEO to the 100-person CEO to the 500-person CEO? This change, this growth in the role is very critical. And in order to succeed that, you have to be a learning machine. And I think CEOs today are totally different than CEOs 30 years, 40 years ago. Today's successful CEOs are learning machines. You constantly learn, you either read, you speak with other smart people in your space, you always try to learn how to upgrade your game, how to improve, and how to be the next level CEO that you need to be as your company grows. Otherwise, your promising startup dies. And finally, the most important thing that I mentioned before, focus on people. Work with your people, identify the right people for your team. Don't hesitate to have tough conversations. Don't keep the wrong people in the bus for a long time. Replace the wrong people with the right people in the right seat in the bus all the time, especially people who don't grow in your company like you're growing. So always focusing your people and making sure that you have the right people in the right places all the time. I think these are the most important things a founder should focus on day by day for doing an exceptional job.
How do you see that you are constantly growing? How do you manage to make sure that you are constantly evolving as a learning machine?
It's very tough, but to me personally, reading is a great asset. I was always reading a lot. I was doing a lot of nonfiction, always nonfiction, and for the most part, business. But also you need to complement yourself with other knowledge that is relevant and complements your personality. For example, reading some history, reading some other types of literature that complement you as a personality. But you need to understand one thing: the problems you're facing right now as a founder, whatever they are, thousands of other people have faced them in the past. And instead of learning the job while you're doing it, you can learn from other people's experience. And that's what reading does. Reading accelerates your learning curve, accelerates your learning process. by learning what problems other people faced and how they solve these problems. Of course, the solution they give to problems have to apply, have to fit your own personality. Of course, you don't do something because somebody else did it. You have to filter your own thing. But that's very fundamental to understand. And that's why you should also make conversations and surround yourself with smart people, other people who, and make them questions, understand how they solve problems. So you learn, constantly learn in various different ways. A second very critical aspect in your growth process, but also in coming up with innovative ideas, is the first principles approach. It's something that Elon Musk is talking a lot. So usually people reason by analogy instead of reasoning by first principles. And by first principles, we mean that reasoning by analogy means that usually people try to improve existing solutions. So you have a problem, someone else has solved the problem in a certain way, and then you improve on this solution, you make it better and better. This is reasoning by analogy. Reasoning by first principles means that you break down a problem to its most fundamental pieces. So you want to evaluate a great new idea, okay? Is this great new idea an improvement to another idea that works already? Or does it break down completely the whole problem and build it from the ground up as if no other solution existed out there? So first principle is an amazing approach, I think, to very successful founders and executives to evaluate, ideas, even people, many things. And it's not very widely discussed as an idea, but I think it's amazing the moment you start thinking this way. I think you can achieve miracles. And I think that's something that I would advise, founders to work on, thinking, because it's not easy to escape the improvement mentality and enter the first principles way of thinking. I think it's an amazing way of doing your job.
Absolutely. So it's a bit like, instead of treating the symptoms, go to the root. Is it that?
Yes.
Oh.
Exactly. It's also called incrementalism, which is a disease in my view. People think, if you think about, other examples or other companies. Let me think, for example, why didn't the hotels become Airbnb? Why didn't taxi drivers, invent Uber? Why didn't let's say IBM become Apple? Because they were thinking incrementalism, in incremental ways of improving what they were already doing, until someone else thought in terms of first principle and totally revolutionized a whole industry by breaking down the whole idea to its fundamental pieces. So, yeah.
Now I think that is very, very good advice. It is those things that really make the great outcomes, when you're really just thinking outside everything that you know and going to the core.
Absolutely.
It has been such a pleasure talking to you today. I was just, before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I wish the best of success to whatever you're doing out there, and best of success to all founders, especially young founders. Don't stop learning. Don't give up too easily. Be out there in the game. It's amazing.
You've been listening to European Startup Universe Talks. If you want to know more about us, go to thestartupuniverse.org and follow us on social media.